What's going down at Halas Hall right now could change everything for the next 5 years. A tight end who became a playoff hero is now on the trade block. A GM facing a brutal draft decision that nobody saw coming. And a defensive position that could blow up if we don't act fast. 3 stories, 3 decisions that'll shape whether Chicago finally breaks the curse or if we're stuck in the same old cycle. Stick around till the end, because what's coming is historic for this franchise. First story, Cole Kmet. Let me be straight with y'all. Cole Kmet straight up saved our season with that 4th down catch against the Vikings in the divisional round. That play kept us alive. I was losing my mind in my living room when I saw him haul that in. Dude laid out, extended his arms, and snagged that ball like his life depended on it. And in that moment, it did. Because if he doesn't make that play, we're done. Season over. Dreams crushed again. But now, after Ryan Poles drafted Colston Loveland in the first round of the 2025 draft, the reality is harsh. Kmet's the odd man out in Chicago. And let me ask you something. Do you really think Poles is going to pay $8.4 million for a backup tight end when we're already over $9.6 million in the red on the cap? I'm telling you right now, it's not happening. And look, I totally get why Poles did what he did with Loveland. The kid had a monster rookie season. 72 catches, 830 yards, 9 touchdowns. Those are elite numbers for a rookie tight end. Only 2 rookie tight ends in NFL history have put up better stats. Kyle Pitts and Evan Engram. That's it. So when a talent like that falls into your lap on draft day, you take him. No hesitation. But here's the thing. Kmet ain't trash. The guy's been a warrior for this franchise for years. Since we drafted him in the 2nd round back in 2020, he's been there day in and day out, season after season, doing his job. He survived the Matt Nagy era when the offense was a total mess. He made it through the transition to Matt Eberflus. He was Justin Fields' go-to guy when Fields was running for his life every Sunday. And then he became one of Caleb Williams' favorite targets in his rookie year. 3 straight seasons with over 500 receiving yards. That's not easy to do in Chicago, where we've always been a run-first, defense-heavy team. But Kmet did it, and he did it by being consistent, reliable, and professional. Never complained, never caused drama, just did his job. Christopher Knox from Bleacher Report just dropped a bomb. He says the Carolina Panthers are the perfect landing spot for Kmet. And honestly, I get it. Carolina won the NFC South this year. Bryce Young is finally starting to look like a franchise QB after 2 rough seasons. They've got some nice weapons with Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker at wideout. But they're missing one key piece, a reliable tight end who can be that safety blanket for Young. Since Greg Olsen left in 2019, the Panthers haven't had a tight end go over 500 yards in a season. Let me say that again. 7 years without a productive tight end. They've tried Ian Thomas. They've tried Tommy Tremble. They've tried washed-up vets. Nothing's worked. And now they've got a young QB who desperately needs someone he can trust over the middle. Kmet's done that 3 times in Chicago. In 2022, 544 yards. In 2023, 562. In 2024, 608. That's the definition of consistency. And for a quarterback like Bryce Young, who's trying to find his footing in this league, having a guy like Kmet, who knows how to find soft spots in zone, who's got reliable hands, who can block when needed, that's priceless. But here's what's got me heated. Knox says Carolina could land Kmet for just a 5th round pick in 2026. A 5th round pick. Are you kidding me? This is a guy who just put up 600 yards, made the biggest play of our season in the playoffs, and we're going to give him away for a 5th rounder. Turns out the Panthers have an extra 5th round pick they got when they sent Adam Thielen back to Minnesota during training camp. So yeah, they've got the ammo, they've got the need, they've got the cap space. With Dave Canales as head coach and a young roster, they can definitely take on Kmet's contract. But let me ask you something deeper. Is this really the best move for Chicago? Because I get the financial side. If Poles makes this move before March 15th, we save the full $8.4 million. And with that money, you know what we could do? We could bring back Kevin Byard. We could beef up that D-line that got shredded by the Niners in the championship game. We could finally fix the problems that have haunted us for years. But here's my real concern, and I want y'all to think about this with me. What happens if Loveland gets hurt? In this league, injuries happen. It's not if, it's when. And when that happens, who's our starting tight end? We gonna roll with a rookie with no experience? We're gonna sign some washed-up vet mid-season? Look at what the other teams in our division have. The Packers kept Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, two young, talented tight ends who can play together or separately. The Lions have Sam Laporta, who was all-pro as a rookie, and solid depth behind him. The Vikings have TJ Hawkinson coming back from injury, and Josh Oliver as a reliable backup. And we're going to roll with one elite tight end and pray he stays healthy all year. In a league where we play 17 regular season games plus playoffs if we're lucky. That's a massive risk. And let me tell you something else. Komet's not just a player on the field. He's a leader in that locker room. He's one of the guys who keeps that group together when things get tough. When we lost 3 straight in November, Komet was one of the voices of calm. When Caleb Williams was struggling with the pressure of being the #1 pick, Komet was there supporting him. That doesn't show up in the stats. That doesn't show up on the cap sheet. But that is what separates a team that falls apart under pressure from one that sticks together and fights to the end. I'm telling you, if Poles makes this move, he better have a rock-solid plan B. Because in this league, depth is what separates contenders from pretenders. And Chicago can't afford to be a pretender again. Not after how close we got this year. Not after finally landing a franchise QB in Caleb Williams. Not after finally building a defense that can hang with anyone. But hey, I also get the business side. Poles has to make tough calls. He's got to balance the now with the future. He's got to squeeze every dollar out of the cap. And if he thinks he can get the same production from Loveland at a fraction of the cost, then maybe, just maybe, this is the right move. But Komet deserves more respect than this. He deserves better than being traded for a 5th rounder after everything he's done for this team. If we're going to move him, let's send him somewhere he can shine. And Carolina, with Bryce Young throwing him the ball, with an offense that desperately needs a safety blanket, with a young team building something special, might just be that perfect spot. I just hope that when Komet's out there making plays for the Panthers, helping Bryce Young become the QB everyone hopes he can be, we're not sitting here in Chicago regretting letting him go for peanuts. Second story, Peter Woods versus Dylan Theinman. If you thought the Komet situation was messy, wait till you hear this. Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network just dropped his first 2026 mock draft, and he's got the Bears doing something I never saw coming. With the 25th pick, Chicago doesn't take Peter Woods, the Clemson defensive tackle, who everyone's comparing to Jeffrey Simmons. Nope. Jeremiah has the Bears taking Dylan Theinman, the safety out of Oregon. Let me say that again so it's crystal clear. The Bears, who haven't drafted a safety in the first round since Mark Carrier back in 1990, 36 years ago, would pass on Peter Woods, a dominant defensive tackle, to take a safety. And I gotta ask, are you out of your mind? Now, before you all say I'm being close-minded, let me explain why this has me fired up. First, let's talk about our D-tackle situation. Ever since Akiem Hicks left after the 2021 season, we haven't had a dominant force in the middle of that line. Andrew Billings has been solid, but he's not a game-changer. Zach Pickens flashed as a rookie, but he's still developing. Byron Cowart is a decent rotational guy, but he's not moving the needle. Now compare that to the rest of the NFC North. The Packers have Kenny Clark, 3-time Pro Bowler, absolute beast in the middle. The Vikings brought in Harrison Phillips from Buffalo to anchor their D-line. The Lions have Aleem McNeil, who's turning into one of the best young defensive tackles in the league. And us, we've got a giant hole in the middle that teams attack every week. Remember the NFC Championship game against the Niners? Christian McCaffrey ran straight up the gut like it was a walkthrough. 143 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, most of it right through the middle because we couldn't hold the line of scrimmage. Peter Woods checks every box, 6'3", 305 pounds, but moves like he's 260. He's got that explosive burst to get into the backfield in a blink. He's strong enough to take on double teams. He's got active hands to bat down passes. And he's versatile. can play in both 4-3 and 3-4 schemes. Scouts are comparing him to Jeffrey Simmons from the Titans. And if you've seen Simmons play, you know exactly what that means. We're talking about a guy who can blow up run plays and generate interior pressure on passing downs. That's the kind of player who transforms a defense. But here's what Jeremiah says. That's got me really worried. Some in the league don't see him as a first-rounder. Who? Who the hell doesn't see Peter Woods as a first-round talent? Oh, I want to know what those scouts are smoking. The guy was Clemson's Defensive Player of the Year as a sophomore. 62 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 5 sacks last season. Sure, maybe he didn't have a 20-sack breakout year. Maybe he needs to drop 5 or 10 pounds to maximize his athleticism. Maybe his hand technique needs work. But when a 22-year-old is being compared to Jeffrey Simmons, you do not pass on him at pick 25. Now let's be fair and talk about Dylan Thieneman, because the kid is not a bad player. Not at all. Thieneman was one of the best safeties in all of college football in 2025. 87 tackles, 5 picks, 11 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles at Oregon. He was an All-American. Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. The guy can do it all. He can play deep as a free safety. He can step up in the box and stop the run. He can cover slot receivers. He's got insane instincts, reads the QB like a book, and breaks on the ball fast. And he's not afraid to hit. They're comparing him to Jevon Holland from the Dolphins, and that's a damn good comp. Holland's been one of the most versatile safeties in the league since he came in. He does whatever his team needs, and Thieneman's got that same kind of skill set. And I totally get Jeremiah's logic. Kevin Byard is 32 and a free agent. Jaquan Briskers had concussion issues and is also a free agent. CJ, Gardner Johnson was awesome for us, but he's a free agent too. Elijah Hicks, also a free agent. Literally, every safety on our roster is hitting the market. So if we can't bring them all back, or even 2 of them, we need young blood at that position. And Thieneman could step in and contribute right away. Dennis Allen, our defensive coordinator, is a wizard with safeties. Look what he did with Byard this year. 7 picks, first team All-Pro, Pro Bowl. If Allen says he can do the same with Thieneman, I believe him. But, and this is a big but, are we really going to ignore the fact that we've got the weakest defensive tackle group in the division? Are we going to ignore that we got gassed in the run game in the biggest game of the year? Are we going to ignore that we desperately need someone who can control the middle of that D-line? Here's my core issue with this pick. Poles has already shown he can find elite safeties outside the first round. Byard was a free agent we signed for cheap. Gardner Johnson, free agent. Brisker, second-round pick in 2022. Eddie Jackson, before he declined, was a 4th-rounder in 2017. Chicago has a track record of finding good safeties in unexpected places. It's like we've got a knack for it. So why waste a first-rounder on a position where we've already had success finding talent later? Especially when good D tackles are crazy hard to find. Look at last year's draft. Jared Verse went 19th. Laiatu Latu went 15th. Byron Murphy went 16th. All the elite interior guys were gone in the first half of round 1. And in free agency, those dudes are expensive. Chris Jones just signed a $95 million extension with the Chiefs. Quinnen Williams got $96 million from the Jets. Jeffrey Simmons, the guy Woods is compared to, got $94 million. If we want an elite D tackle in free agency, we're going to have to pay up. But if we take Woods at 25, we get him on a rookie deal for 4 years. That's cost control. That's value. That's exactly the kind of move smart teams make to maximize their competitive window. And let me ask you something else. Do you trust we can fix the D tackle spot in the 2nd or 3rd round? Because I don't. The best ones go early. The ones left later are projects who need years to develop. We don't have years. Our window is now with Caleb Williams on his rookie deal. But here's the flip side. If Poles takes Thieneman and the kid comes in and has a season like Byard just had, are we going to complain? Probably not. If Thieneman gets 5 or 6 picks, makes the Pro Bowl, becomes the leader of our secondary for the next decade, we'll be praising Poles for having the vision to take him. And maybe, just maybe, Poles knows something we don't. Maybe he's got medical info on Woods that's concerning. Maybe he thinks he can get a solid D tackle in round 2. Maybe he's already got a free agency plan to bring in a vet for that spot. I think it comes down to one key question. What's more important for Chicago right now? Locking down the future at safety with a generational talent like Thieneman? Or fixing the immediate problem on the D-line with a guy like Woods who can contribute from day one? Because I'm telling you, if we can't stop the run, if we can't generate pressure up the middle, if we can't control the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter how good our safeties are. Teams will run all over us just like the Niners did. And we'll be back here next year asking the same questions, feeling the same frustrations, watching the same weaknesses get exposed again and again. The Bears' tradition is defense. Monsters of the midway. That starts up front, not in the secondary. We need to get back to those roots. We need to dominate in the trenches. And Peter Woods gives us that shot. But if Poles sees something different, if he believes Thieneman is the future, then I've got to trust the process. Because so far, Poles has made more good moves than bad. I just hope this isn't the one we regret for the next 5 years. Third story, Jesse Bates 3. And just when you thought we were done, here comes the wildest twist yet. If the Bears can't bring back Kevin Byard, and trust me, that's looking more real than people think, there's a plan B on the table that might actually be better long-term. Jordan J. Wilson just floated a trade idea that would bring Jesse Bates III to Chicago from the Atlanta Falcons. And before you call me crazy, let me lay out the full picture of why this makes total sense. Jesse Bates III is a 3-time All-Pro. Let me say that again. 3-time second-team All-Pro in 2022 with the Bengals, in 2024 with the Falcons, and again in 2025 with Atlanta. This isn't some one-hit wonder. This dude has been elite, consistently, for years. He's 29 years old, which means he's right in the prime of his career. He's not on the decline, like some vets pushing 33 or 34. He's still got years of high-level football ahead of him. And here's the kicker. He's 3 years younger than Kevin Byard. Now, I love Kevin Byard. The guy was phenomenal for us in 2025. Led the entire NFL with 7 interceptions. First-team All-Pro, Pro Bowler. He was exactly what we needed in that secondary. But the truth is, Byard turns 33 in August. And in the NFL, especially for safeties, 33 is when you start to see the drop-off. It's not disrespect. It's just biology. Players lose a step. Injuries pile up. Recovery takes longer. And even though Byard's been incredibly durable, Father Time is undefeated. Bates, on the other hand, is in that sweet spot. In 2025 with the Falcons, he had 3 picks, 6 pass breakups, 98 total tackles, and held opposing QBs to a 56.3 completion rate when targeted. That's elite production. And here's what really impresses me. Bates has played every game the last 3 seasons. 17 games in 2023, 17 in 2024, 17 in 2025, 51 straight games without missing a single one in his entire 8-year career. He's only missed 3 games. That's insane durability. Compare that to our current safety situation. Jaquan Brisker's had concussion issues that are honestly scary. Missed games in both 2024 and 2025. And while we all hope he's okay, concussions are serious and can derail careers. CJ Gardner-Johnson also has a history of injuries. He's a baller when he's on the field, but availability is the best ability in this league. And Bates has that in spades. Now let's talk about Atlanta's situation, because that's what makes this trade even possible. The Falcons are in full rebuild mode. New head coach Kevin Stefanski, fresh from Cleveland. New president of football ops, Matt Ryan. Yeah, that Matt Ryan. They're about to hire a new GM too. When a team's rebuilding from scratch like that, expensive vets are usually the first to go. That's just how the business works. Atlanta needs cap space to build around their young core. They need draft picks to reload. And Bates, while a fantastic player, carries a cap hit of around $13 million for 2026. That's a lot of money for a team that's not going to be contending next year. So why not flip him for a draft pick and free up that cap space? Makes total sense for Atlanta. And for us, $13 million sounds like a lot, but it's only slightly more than what Bayard is expected to ask for on the open market. Reports say Bayard wants somewhere between 8 and 12 million per year. So if Bates costs 13, but he's 3 years younger, and we can lock him up long term, that's value! Wilson's proposal! The Bears send a 2026 fourth-round pick, the one we got from the Rams last year, for Bates. And presumably, Chicago would work out a short extension with him, maybe 2 or 3 more years, to make sure he's not just a one-year rental. Picture this! Bates signs a 3-year, $36 million extension. That's $12 million per year, totally manageable under the cap, and gives us an elite safety locked in through Caleb Williams' prime. That's exactly the kind of move smart teams make to maximize their Super Bowl window. And here's the best part. This is exactly the kind of move Ryan Poles has made before. Remember when he traded for Joe Thuney from the Chiefs in 2025? Nobody saw that coming. Everyone thought we'd go after a guard in free agency, but Poles got creative, made a trade, and landed an all-pro in his prime. Remember when he traded for Jonah Jackson from the Lions? Same deal. Instead of overpaying in free agency, Poles found value in the trade market. And both moves worked out perfectly. So when I see this Bates proposal, I see the same kind of outside-the-box thinking that's made Poles successful. It's not the obvious move. It's not what everyone expects. But it's the smart move that maximizes value. Now let me be crystal clear about something. I want Kevin Bayard back. The guy was incredible for us. He lived up to every expectation. He was a leader in the locker room, a mentor to the young guys, the voice of that defense. And Poles has already said publicly that he wants him back. In his January 21st press conference, Poles said, "I think Kevin is a special player. I have no problem saying he's someone we'd like to have back. But when you add in the other safeties and all the other decisions we have to make across the roster, cap constraints, things like that, it's going to be a challenge. But that's part of what we do." Read between the lines there. It's going to be a challenge. That's GM speak for it's going to be tough to make the money work. And here's the problem. Chicago is almost 13 million over the cap heading into the 2026 league year. 13 million in the hole. That means before we can sign any free agents or even bring back our own guys, we've got to clear 13 million just to break even. And that's before we even think about re-signing Bayard, Brisker, Gardner-Johnson, or anyone else. So what happens if Bayard's market blows up? What if the Cowboys, who've got tons of cap space, offer him 15 million a year? What if the Commanders, building around Jaden Daniels, offer him 16? Are the Bears really going to match that for a 33-year-old safety when we've got so many other needs? I'm telling you, probably not. And that's exactly where Bates comes in. For just a fourth-rounder, we get an all-pro safety in his prime, with a proven track record of durability, who fits any defensive scheme, and who we can extend long-term. That's the kind of move that lets you compete now while also securing your future. But here's my concern, and I'm going to be real with y'all. If we make this trade, what message are we sending to Kevin Bayard? The guy gave everything for Chicago in 2025, played every snap like it was his last, was our defensive leader, a huge reason we made it to the NFC Championship. And this is how we repay him? By bringing in his replacement before even sitting down to negotiate? That feels cold, like a slap in the face after everything he did for us. And look, I get it. This is a business. You can't let emotions dictate $50 million decisions. Poles has to do what's best for the team, long term. But Bayard deserves the respect of at least having a real conversation about his future here. Because if we let him walk without even trying, and then Bates comes in and doesn't work out, or worse, gets hurt in week 3 and we lose the season, we're going to be kicking ourselves for years. But let me ask you something that keeps me up at night. What if we lose both? What if Bayard signs with Dallas and the Falcons decide not to trade Bates because their new GM wants to keep him? Then we're looking at Javarius Owens as our starting safety. And with all due respect to Owens, he's been a solid special teamer and decent backup. He is not the answer at safety for a team trying to win a Super Bowl. He just isn't. So Poles has to be aggressive here. He needs multiple plans. Plan A, bring back Bayard at a reasonable price. Plan B, trade for Bates if Bayard gets too expensive. Plan C, have other safeties lined up in free agency or the draft if both fall through. Because with Caleb Williams on his rookie deal, we cannot waste a single year. He's got 3 more years on that rookie contract. That's 3 years of max cap flexibility. 3 years to surround him with the best talent possible. After that, when we have to pay him what he's worth, probably 40 or 50 million a year, our window tightens. It doesn't close, but it gets harder to build a complete roster when your QB is eating up 20% of the cap. So these next 3 years are crucial, and safety is too important in Dennis Allen's scheme to leave it to chance. Allen builds his whole defense around versatile safeties who can do multiple things. Look what he did with Byard. Look what he did with Gardner-Johnson. If Bates comes in and Allen can work the same magic with him, we're looking at years of elite play at that position. And for a 4th-round pick, that's a risk totally worth taking. So let me ask you straight up, Bears fans. Do you think Poles should trade Cole Kmet for a 5th-rounder, or should he push for more? Because I'm telling you, this guy just saved our season with that catch against the Vikings. He deserves more respect than being dumped for a day 3 pick. Should we take Peter Woods at 25 and finally fix that D-line that got exposed by the Niners? Or do we trust that Dylan Thieneman is the generational safety who can anchor our secondary for the next decade? Because I'm telling you, the monsters of the Midway are built from the trenches back, not the other way around. And what do we do with Kevin Byard? Do we bring him back no matter the cost because he earned it with those 7 picks and that leadership? Or do we make the bold move for Jesse Bates III, who's 3 years younger and could give us the long-term stability we desperately need? Because here's one thing I know for sure. These 3 decisions are going to define whether Chicago finally breaks that Super Bowl curse that's haunted us since 1985, or if we stay stuck as the team that almost gets there but never finishes the job. And you, the Bears family, the ones who bleed navy and orange, the ones who've suffered through Trubisky, through Nagy, through years of mediocrity, you deserve honest answers. You deserve a team that makes the right calls. You deserve a front office that understands the window is now. If you think Met deserves more than a 5th-rounder for everything he's done for this team, drop it in the comments right now. If you think Peter Woods is the obvious pick and passing on him would be a historic mistake, let me know below. And if you're Team Byard or Team Bates, I want to hear your full argument for why one is better than the other. And look, if you want to stay part of this daily conversation, if you want to stay up to date with every move Poles makes, every decision Eberflus takes, every development at Harless Hall, you need to subscribe to this channel right now. Because tomorrow, we've got more explosive news about potential free agency moves. And you do not want to miss what's coming for Chicago. Smash that like button if you believe Poles is going to make the right calls and maximize this competitive window. Subscribe if you trust that this organization finally gets what Chicago needs to get back to the top. And comment which of these 3 stories has you most fired up or most worried about the future of this team. Because at the end of the day, we're more than just fans. We're a family that's been through it all. Through the wins and the heartbreaks, through the draft busts and the all-pros, through the awful head coaches and the brilliant coordinators. This family has waited 41 years to get back to a Super Bowl. 41 years of pain, 41 years of hope, 41 years of next year is our year. But I'm telling you this with every ounce of conviction I've got. This is our moment. This is our window. And if Poles makes the right moves, if he makes the tough calls that need to be made, we're going to be celebrating a championship within the next 3 years. So let's stick together. Let's support each other. Let's trust the process, but hold this organization accountable. And let's watch Ryan Poles turn these Chicago Bears into champions again. Bear down, Chicago, Dar Bears. And I'll see you in the next video with more breaking news that's going to change everything.